Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash. I've been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. In addition to that, I'm also an IT professional, allegedly. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gearman, who also works in IT. If you got tech questions for us, please, by all means, send those to requests@radiodeadair.com. We will try to help you out with those. I'm already having fun tonight. I was trying to start the virtual camera so that Mike could see me in Discord, and apparently the Stream Deck plugin for OBS was causing crashes. Whenever I started the virtual camera, I disabled plugin, and now we're fine. So that's great. That's fun. I like that. How you doing, Mike?
Other than
leave stuff alone,
messing up my thumb somehow yesterday, I'm doing good.
did you mess up your thumb?
Well, apparently, I put my hand on a banister, and I went down some stairs. And then when I took my hand off the banister, my thumb hurt. And there's no shards or anything on the banister. It's relatively freshly painted. And I'm like, well, that's not good. It's not horrible. It's just like, that's the thing about getting older. You manage to injure yourself, and you go like, but I didn't even do anything. I got out of bed.
Yeah. We're falling apart. We're going to die. All right. Well, speaking of falling apart, the entire PC market, because right now RAM is at a premium. SSDs. There we go. Got things mixed up in my head. SSDs are at a premium. Trying to build a budget entry option is something of a disaster right now.
Especially if you want it for gaming.
Yeah.
Even if you just want it for, say, I need to surf the web and maybe do a little bit of writing.
No, those are going away. The entry level market, I need to use a laptop to do stuff. That's going away. The $500, $600 ones, those are gone. It's not just if you need it for gaming. No, it's for everything.
Because they need the RAM and the storage for the bigger machines that they get a bigger price tag on.
So that's what makes this the first thing we have to talk about this week. Kind of made the entire PC industry shit a brick. Apple traditionally has not approached the budget market, not since the 80s.
Indeed.
Their entire niche, Apple's whole business model has been, we're going to sell expensive products, but they're going to have good customer service. They're going to be covered. And they're not going to be able to upgrade or replace them very much, but we're just going to make sure they work for you. We're going to kind of be like concierge service, if I can say words right. We're going to be at the high end of things, and we don't care if you can't afford to buy a Mac, because if you can't afford to buy a Mac, the Mac's not for you. And that was kind of their whole oeuvre for ages. Charlie, God damn it. Knocking shit over for the sake of knocking shit over.
I will point out, Charlie is a cat.
So what really surprised everyone this week, and it's been kind of this has been set up for a while. It's just a surprise they actually took this step. This week, Apple unveiled the $600, they call it $599, it's $600. The $600 MacBook Neo. And this is not a super powerful PC. In fact, it's not a PC at all. It's an iPhone.
It's basically an iPhone with a larger screen. It's only got 8 gigs of RAM.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's got 8 gigs of RAM and It's called unified memory store. I don't know if that includes the storage.
Well, the storage, it's 256 gigs of
Okay.
SSD. It couldn't, Mike, the system wouldn't work with 8 gigs of storage.
If it was all online. If it was a
It
client.
still couldn't work with 8 gigs of storage.
Okay. Yeah, true. Sorry. Hadn't had enough caffeine today.
How the hell?
It's not upgradable. See that.
Well, it's all right. This thing is, what makes this notable is it is an iPhone. Let's be honest. It's got the same internals, practically the same stuff inside it as the Apple, the iPhone 16. Let's see if I can show you the picture down here. This is all of the stuff inside of it, right? This is all of it. And down here, if I can find the picture.
Are you looking at a different article than what you sent me?
The iFixit article I sent you.
No?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Check your replies. There it is. Yeah, there it is.
In the second, he normally does news and then questions, sometimes questions, then news. But all the news is generally in the first email, and then subsidiary questions will show up in email 2 or 3. No, this time he put some subsidiary news in.
This board right here that you see on the screen, this board, that's the entire computer. It's about this long. It's about this thick. That's the entire freaking computer. And if you look down there, there's the logic board for the main logic board for the iPhone 16. And there's the core for the MacBook Neo.
I'm going to be honest with you. Those processors, I'm assuming that's the processors, that the big chunk in the middle. Those look identical to me.
Mm-hmm. It's because they are. It's
trying to see. Can I zoom in on this picture? Let's see. Open image, new tab.
Yeah, it's the iPhone 16 Pro is what it is. Now, what makes this possible is a decision Apple made many years ago when they got fed up with Intel and said, we're making our own CPUs. They switched to ARM with the M1, and now I think we're on the M5. In doing so, they had to change how iOS worked, or macOS, how it's macOS now. They had to change how macOS worked because CPUs run instructions in different ways. You had RISC processors back in the day. You have x86, which are the majority of that's desktop. That's majority of laptop CPUs are x86. And then you have ARM, which is the main stuff that was used for tablets and phones and just about every other low power device. And then they decided to use it for the MacBook. Because it's ARM, Mac OS is using the same CPU instruction set as a phone. It's not the same as the OS isn't the same, but it can run it. And this is proof of concept that an iPhone CPU can run Mac OS because that's exactly what it's doing. This is kind of brilliant because Apple likely has already stocked up on these before shortages happened. They're just redirecting the parts. Nobody else can do this right now. Because you say, well, what about Chromebook? Chromebook is not in the same league as Mac OS. Love it or hate it, Mac OS is a complete full-featured operating system. It can do everything a PC can do. It can do everything Linux could do. It is a complete OS. There's no limitations on it like on, say, the iPhone OS or Android or any of that. It's a full, complete operating system. Chromebook is based out of a browser, is the basis of the entire operating system, is Chrome, is the operating system. So because this runs Mac OS, they've essentially taken a part they already had for a different purpose. They've repurposed it for a laptop And now it does everything a full-fledged Windows laptop can do, only they're able to do it at a cut rate price because the processor does not cost very much for them. And
no. And I suspect they say in here light gaming. I suspect the light gaming is whatever apps, whatever games you could load onto your iPhone is the games you can play on this.
No. If it runs on Mac OS, it'll run on this.
Yeah, but some of the things that run on Mac OS are going to want a lot more than 8 gig of RAM.
True, but the code base is the same. It's Mac OS. It's not iOS. The code base is the same. The architecture on the CPU is the same. If it could run with 8 gigs of RAM on a Mac, it'll run with 8 gigs of RAM on the MacBook Neo.
Yeah. I wasn't questioning that. I was questioning whether or not what other things you might be able to get away with on there. Someone's going to try Cyberpunk 2077, and I don't think they're going to enjoy it, but they'll make a video. If they could probably do like low resolution with all the settings turned down, but they might even be able to get 30 frames per second off this thing, and that's going to be impressive. But that's not what people are getting this for. This is replacing that part of the market where people said, look, I need a business machine. I just need something to check my email, run documents, maybe do some light gaming, Facebook, watch some videos. That's what I need this for. And that's what this is going. Hi, Doofus. That's what this is going to fill that niche. And it's crazy because there's nobody else everybody else in the business can't approach Apple at this price point right now. Given the RAM shortage, given the SSD shortage, we're going to have even more fun now that the shipping lanes are being challenged. Because of all that, everybody else is going to be priced out of this segment of the market. We're not going to see $600 machines from HP and Dell and all the usual suspects, but Apple is going to be there. And also, there's $100 student discount on this thing. That brings it down to $500 if you're a student. This is a gateway drug because it's running Mac OS. Way back in the day, Apple did a smart thing, amazingly enough, and they put Macs in every freaking classroom they could. There was educational deals with high schools and middle schools and colleges to make sure everyone had access to a Mac. Here's a Mac, we'll give it to you for free. And all those students learned on Mac OS. And that's how, for a while, Final Cut was like the dominant editing suite for a lot of things. Because they put themselves in there so people learned on Mac OS. Now we have a whole new section of people who are going to be learning on their entry-level computers at Mac OS. They're entering the ecosystem. They're holding, and this is going to, nobody else can do this right now. Nobody else can. Because everyone else is beholden to x86. Maybe there could be, someone could get away with a Linux distribution on ARM. But even then, you're going to have limitations that you would have to recompile certain programs to run on an ARM version of Linux because they're not going to be directly x86 compatible across the board. The applications will have to be redone to work with ARM Linux. Apple doesn't have to do that. If it runs on Mac OS already, it'll run on this thing because they're already on ARM. They've been on ARM for years now. Windows has been dying to get into ARM. They've been trying, Microsoft has been trying to come up with a version of Windows that'll run on ARM. They have it, kind of, but even it can't run non-ARM programs. Everything else is compiled for x86. Apple is just
they were ready for this moment, and this is a kill shot.
Well,
This thing
I mean,
is.
part of it does depend on whether they stick with the price point as well. I mean, there's a chance that this leaked price point won't stick, but we'll see.
Now, there are some limitations on this, obviously. Number one, you can't upgrade it at all. No RAM upgrades.
Soldered in.
Yeah, memory soldered in. SSD is soldered in. So if you want any storage on this, it's going to be external. 256 gigabyte SSD is not great, but you do have the option to plug in an external hard drive, and you have your external storage. However, iFixit has finally said this is the most repairable Macintosh in MacBook in 14 years. Because here's the entire thing. This picture on the screen right here, that's the whole thing. It's a screen. It's the you can actually just the keyboard isn't riveted in. It's screwed in. There are 41 screws, and you can take the keyboard out.
Wait,
every part's
41?
41, yes. But
Oy.
41 screws as opposed to rivets. Rivets you can't do shit with.
Agreed. It's just that if I were a tech being told, hey, I need you to replace the keyboard on this, I'd be looking at going, 41.
But you can at least do it. If the keyboard dies on this, fixing it is trivial. The battery is not glued in. I repeat, the battery is not glued in. It's in that the largest piece you see on the screen there, that tray. Yeah, here it is. That tray looking thing right there, that's the battery. It unscrews, Mike. You can just unscrew it and remove it. None of this is glued in place.
I'm wondering if that's feedback from years worth of people at the Apple store. Do they still call it the Genius Bar?
I think it's still Genius Bar, yes.
Yeah. Saying, hey, we could replace this if you hadn't glued it in. We wouldn't have to ship it off. We could keep a small stock in and replace things.
Now, admittedly, there's not a lot to fix on this.
No, it looks like if you blew out the speakers, you could replace the speakers, replace a battery. Obviously,
trackpad, keyboard. Yeah. But if something happens to that logic board, that's the whole computer. You just have to swap that straight up. But regardless,
like the screen section was pretty straightforward to replace as well.
Yeah. It's got a 1440p screen or something close thereof. It's like 15 something. It's a weird resolution, but
because that's another thing Apple does do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This it's remarkable. This thing is so much better in terms of, like, oddly enough, you're going to see this less in landfills than you will much more expensive MacBooks. The e-waste from this is going to be considerably lower because you can just, if something goes wrong, I mean, you will have to swap out that entire logic board, but you could just swap out the logic board. That's a lot less e-waste. It used to be if something went wrong with it, well, most of the laptop had to go. Now it's oh my God, it's so good. This is, if I were in the PC manufacturer, this was Apple swooping in at the perfect moment to do the maximum harm.
I don't think they predicted this, mind you. I think it was just a case of, hey, we're going to do this. Oh, look, the world caught up with us. And now it's good.
Well, they might not have predicted it, but I do believe they were able to act on it quickly because they had the parts available And designing this probably didn't take very much. I will say another reason I think it's as modular and as repairable as it is Johnny Ive is no longer with Apple. And his ridiculous,
his weird design philosophies.
His form over function horseshit is not there anymore. Like
the charge cable for a wireless mouse plugs into the bottom of the mouse.
This is just the stunning one right there. If you look at the upper right-hand section, that little part there, do you know what those are? Those are the USB ports. Those are those right there. That's the USB ports. The USB ports are modular. So if you say spill something on your desk while you're having a drink, or some condensation runs over while you're at Starbucks and it gets into your USB port, they can just unplug the old USB port and plug in a new one. Super cheap repair. They don't have like they usually in most laptops, that's the entire motherboard. If something happens to your USB port.
Sometimes there's, and a lot of it depends on the motherboard. The ones we have at work, the USBs on one side are on the motherboard. The USBs on the other side are on a removable daughter board. Now,
this is all of them.
Can I order that removable daughter board? No, I cannot. But it's on a removable one.
But I mean, just in terms of being able to fix this thing, it's crazy. That is wild to see this from Apple. I'd expect to see this from like almost any other manufacturer except maybe Dell. To see this from Apple is just stunning. So yeah, this is also coming at a time where Windows is probably at its least popular it's ever been, thanks to their insistence on pushing Copilot and the AI crap and everything that nobody wants. This is the perfect storm for Macintosh to grab market share. This is younger people, kids, college students. They're going to learn the Mac OS, and as they get older, they're going to be like, I'd like something more powerful, and I already know Mac OS. What do they have available? And they're going to get a Mac Mini, like an M5 Mac Mini.
Well, you did go down and see why probably Apple is doing this with the battery, at least.
Why? EU
regulation in 2027. All batteries, all new products have to have user replaceable batteries. Now, user replaceable does not mean necessarily the average user can replace it, but the average user can get it replaced.
Right. Still, so the Mac OS, but that's just a side point. The Mac OS part, getting that to this many new users, getting them comfortable with Mac OS, because lots of people, I mean, every time a Windows story comes up right now, everyone rolls, because nothing about it appeals to anybody. It's we're gonna have more Copilot shit. We're gonna have more AI crap. Everybody reads Microsoft stories, Windows stories, and they're like, I'm gonna switch to Linux. They never do, but they swear they're going to. This is one of those instances where they might, because Linux, for all its versatility, still has a lot of compatibility issues, and hardware manufacturers don't necessarily make drivers for Linux. They do make them for Mac. Like Elgato, the people who make my Stream Deck and everything, there is no dedicated Linux drivers for any of my devices, but there are Mac drivers. So most of my hardware, say for some reason I wanted to transfer to Mac, I could take most of my hardware with me. That's something you can't do with Linux all the time, depending. This is, and considering that Mac is based on Unix, it also has a lot of advantages there as well. is it BSD or is it Unix? It's the same base as Linux, the same origin point as Linux. This is bad for PC makers this year. This year is
Well, I suspect we're going to see from this, Ash, is we're going to see a lot of these PC makers looking at this model and going, what do they have design patents on? Okay, we'll work around those. Now, I'm not saying they'll be able to do it affordably. They can't do it affordably right now, but for the future, when they're looking at if things ever clear up again.
The limitation is not the hardware. The limitation is the operating system. Mac is the only one who can, Apple is the only company right now that can just seamlessly use their phone chips as full-on PC chips because of ARM. Microsoft is leagues behind it. Even Linux is lagging because, again, you have to recompile programs to run on ARM on Linux. They can't just, if you have an x86 program for Linux, you can't just drop it onto a version of Linux ARM and expect it to run. So all those programs that people might be used to that are replacing things that are on Windows, they're going to have to hope that that open source community recompiles it and makes a version that runs on ARM. They don't always. Yet, Drake, there is an issue there. It's the compilation of the applications. Just the operating system isn't enough. No, they've been on ARM since 2012. You can't just drop an app that's for x86 Linux onto ARM Linux. It won't work.
To give an example, Microsoft okay, sorry, let me correct that. That's not Microsoft maintaining it. There's maintained pages of, here is the ARM software that we know of that is available for Windows. The software that's available for Windows on ARM. Let me word that properly. And it'll go like, oh, here's your categories, and I'm going to click on audio editing. And while it's got a number of Adobe products, there's things in here that I'm looking for and going like, I don't see them.
It's the same compilation process, but you actually have to have people do it.
Yeah.
Okay? You have to have the open source community be willing to release a Linux version for ARM or an ARM version for Linux. Mac doesn't have to do that. They just do it. They don't have to have any differentiation or anything worried about that. They did everything. Oh. Drake, are you sitting there telling me every single application available for Linux has an ARM version? You're literally saying that right now. You want to put your money on that. And half the time say, well, the users can do it. That's the biggest problem with trying to get users into Linux. If you're on Mac, you don't have to.
Well, I can think of one right off the top of my head. Says find the one that's not. FL Studio is not available it's available for Mac, but it's not available for Mac on ARM that I can find.
No, he's talking about Linux, Mike, not Mac. Linux on ARM.
Oh. I don't know if it's maybe for FL Studio Linux. Let me see if that is. No. Well, it works under Wine, but that's not the same thing.
That's not the same thing, no. So Mac is pretty much, they're poised in such a way that nobody else is. They are going to make a mess out of Windows. I never thought I'd see a situation, because Apple's always limited themselves to being happy with their niche of the market. And now they're actually this is a very aggressive move against Windows at the perfect time to steal user base from Windows, because Microsoft is so determined to do the AI crap. And I know Apple has some of the AI crap, but they're not as deeply invested and integral to Mac OS as it is to Windows. This is crazy. Speaking of the AI crap, causing business problems and probably potentially being the downfall of a company. Do you remember, I think it was back in 2015, 2016, do you remember Pivot to Video?
Oh, yeah, that was where every website got tricked. Every content creation company got tricked by Facebook into saying video was going to be the new format. You don't need to write anything anymore. You're just making videos, and we'll pay you for your videos because here's all the data we've pulled saying that video is what everyone is doing now, and Facebook lied.
And that almost completely destroyed BuzzFeed. Because the whole pivot to video... tons of other companies, but because of pivot to video and Facebook and all that horse shit, BuzzFeed went all in, and BuzzFeed almost died. Mike, they did it again. And I think this time it might actually kill the company. BuzzFeed went all in on AI, and now they have substantial doubts that the company can stay in business. Let's get my where's that? It's on screen here. There it is. Earnings report on Thursday. BuzzFeed said it has engaged in strategic conversations about relieving its liquidity issues. They have been writing AI articles and AI articles. They have been first they started with the AI quizzes, and then they moved to AI articles. And now they thought everything's going to be AI. It's the future. It's going to save us all so much money, and we're going to be perfect, and there's nothing to worry about, and we don't have to pay people, and we don't have to have employees. And now they're not making any money anymore because nobody wants to read slop. It couldn't have happened to a nicer company. Let's see. The CNN article doesn't go into it.
They've got brands under their umbrella that they could probably sell off to interested parties. Whether it'll make those brands better or worse, right now, the media ecosystem is pretty screwed up.
Here we go. Here's the better article.
I don't know who would buy, for example, the online food network Tasty.
I mean, they could try sell stuff off to maybe cover their debts, but they're not going to be able to sell stuff off to keep working. Because in 2023, they went hard in on the AI. They were pivoting to AI. They were using ChatGPT. They were all of that shit. And now the company reported a net loss of $57.3 million in 2025. How in the fuck does BuzzFeed lose $57 million? How does it even make that? How did you spend that much money on fucking BuzzFeed? For fuck's sake. So, Josh Peretti, Jonah Peretti, the CEO, has not been put off. He now says he's hoping to, quote, bring new AI apps to the market this year. Doubling down there, huh?
Yeah, I mean, given the other bits of news that have come out this last couple of weeks of, we're going to cut funding, or this data center is not going through, this other data center may not go through. I forget what big name in the finance industry was like, there's maybe a bit too much money invested in AI. We're not necessarily recommending people invest more there.
Meta dropped 20% of their workforce.
That stellar businessman, Elon Musk, just kicked out 2 more of the founders of XAI. There's only one left out of all the founding people in XAI.
Mhm.
There's only one left. And he's saying, you guys got to redo everything basically from scratch because our AI is not good enough. And it's like everything you've touched, Elon.
Yeah, how do you redo it from fucking scratch? So yeah, this is not good for them. I mean, probably for the rest of us, it's probably going to be good in the long run, but this is not good for them. So yeah, goodbye BuzzFeed, but also not good for us. Back in 2016, man, the 2010s had so much, 2012, sorry. 2010s had so much promise at the outset. I remember everything felt like there was a new way of doing things. Things were going to get better. And one of those things was Google announced they were getting into fiber internet. They were going to be an internet provider for fiber optic internet. And they started with a reasonable prices and a couple of companies, pilot cities, and it looked great and the people were happy with the service. And then by they stopped running out. By 2016, they said, we're not going to roll this out anywhere else. And now at long last, the grave is being filled in. Google Fiber is being sold to private equity. I mean, I hate to laugh, but
her merging it with a cable company.
But the instant you say anything is going to private equity, that's the kiss of fucking death. In case you don't understand this, you might have heard private equity shit before. And in case you don't understand how this works, private equity will buy out a company using a loan, or they will use other
often using a loan. Sometimes they just get investments from other people. They get, hey, we want to buy this thing, give us money to invest in this and buy this thing. But often it's loans.
Now they buy it and then they transfer any debt they have to the company they've purchased. This is also venture capital does this as well. The company that has been invested in or bought with debt or all this stuff is now expected to pay off those investments, to pay off that debt, in addition to now having all the debt on it as well. Whatever baggage it already had. And the way they do this is they aggressively cut every single thing to the freaking bone until the company can no longer function. And then we suddenly no longer have Toys R Us. And this is really unsettling because Google Fiber seemed like the best chance we'd have for a fiber internet competition or a competing ISP in the United States. It really felt like we would have another option that wasn't Comcast or AT&T or one of the other large ones. Was it Charter? Whatever what are they called now? Fuck, who even knows? Spectrum, Charter, whatever the fuck.
I can't keep track of what they change names every few years.
And there was also the idea that SpaceX would have it with, their Starlink would be something, and that hasn't turned out quite so well.
Okay, no, Starlink. The only thing I don't like Starlink, but I will say it does have an installed base that does seem to be actually growing.
I mean, yeah, and also
whether it's cost effective for them to continue growing, I don't know.
They also have a installed base of satellites that are going to eventually prevent us from being able to launch rockets anymore. But sure, that's fine. Spectrum, now with Charter buying Cox, it will be Cox Spectrum. Yeah, that Cox, Charter, that whole alignment of shit there with them. It seemed like Google Fiber would be the competition. And now we still have, I've been back here, moved back here in 2017. It's been almost 10 years now. And even before that, fiber was something that had been around since like the late 2000s. There's still not fiber to my house.
No.
20 years later, they still don't have, I don't have a fiber optic option to my house. AT&T provides fiber to my city, but not to where I live because they decided it's not cost effective. I'm lucky I have cable internet. So we are trying to maintain our internet with an aging infrastructure that can only be pushed so far. DOCSIS can only go so far with cable internet. And other countries, like I see the numbers on South Korea and their internet connections, and I weep. I want them.
Yeah. Now there are countries, of course, that are actually they look at ours and go like, man, why can't we have that? And I'm not even saying, poor countries. I'm like, England occasionally goes like, people in England go like, I went to America and their internet's fast. Like, oh, you sad people.
No,
don't get Australians started. Do not get Australians started on their internet.
It's a freaking disaster and I hate it. So yeah, RIP Google Fiber enters the Google graveyard after all these years. So many other things in the Google graveyard. It's not going to lack for company in the afterlife. All right. Let's get to some questions now. If you have tech questions for me and Mike, send those to request@radio.air.com. We'll try and help you with those.
Well, before we go to questions, real quick, there's something I wanted to mention.
What?
I got to find the link for it, but there is someone out there tracking AI citation sanctions against lawyers. They're like, we got a database. And I'm like, I got to go through this at some point. I got to look.
Okay, first one is from Chris R. He says, hey guys, saw you talking about your button box on Reddit. Yeah, that's the controller I made for flight sim games. Controller I put together. This actually works. All these buttons and toggles for like a spaceship cockpit. They all work. It connects to USB. It works. Since you fly, do you have any HOTUS recommendations for a budget? HOTUS, that stands for hands-on, throttle, and stick. The HOTUS is the preferred controller for stuff like Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen, what there is of it to actually play, and other flight sims like Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example. That's kind of what it's ideal because it's more of a realistic setup for flying. You have a throttle on one side that you can move up and back, and you have a flight stick controller. There's even also been a move to something called HOSAS, which is hands-on stick and stick, where you replace the throttle with another stick, and that serves as your throttle instead. For budget recommendations to start off with controllers for that, it's a lot better. I will say the field of sticks and controllers is a lot broader than it was before. For budget recommendations, there was initially I'll check the price of this because I haven't in a while. Okay. If you really want to be absolute freaking bottom of the barrel budget, and the prices come down on this thing a remarkable amount. The Thrustmaster T-Flight HOTUS X is $70. I've used one before. It's not bad. It's not great because it's what's called a cup and ball. It's not like that. It's not like that. It's not like turn your head and cough. It's what it does is the joystick is it's got a ball on the bottom and it sits in a cup, and that's how it rotates and turns. And that's a lot of friction over time. And eventually that wears out because, it's cheap. It fails. For $70, it's a good place to get started. You get a nice little throttle, you get a nice stick to go with it. However, What used to be the $300 option has come way down. Let's see. And yeah, here it is. That would be the Logitech. That's the wrong button there. There we go. The Logitech X52 Professional. It was $300 at one point. Now it's all the way down to $160, brand new. That's still a lot of money. But even better, if you go and check eBay, you can typically find these for at least half as much. So you can get these around $80, depending. And they still work. The stick is not a cup and ball. It's actually on a gimbal, a pivot arm gimbal, which is a lot less stress. It works better overall. And it's fairly solid. It's got some metal parts. Software's pretty good. The only downside is it is finicky. That's what I use right now. And I'm looking to replace it at some point because I don't know if you see how much the stick wobbles when it returns to center here. You don't want that to happen. What you want is when the stick returns to center, you just want it to go like that. And you just want it to go right back to the center. Instead, it wobbles back and forth. And there's also some of the components have a bit of a dead zone to them. Or not dead zone is they get kind of twitchy at 0, which they shouldn't be, but you have to actually configure them to a point where the computer can't read the input when it's sitting at that level, so it doesn't get false inputs off the controller. I will say for the money, it's good and it's comfortable. It feels good in the hand. It's got a lot of little features on it. It's got switches and buttons, and you can pretty much do everything you want with this. But if you could get it used, it's probably a better option. It's going to be way better than the Thrustmaster entry level. It's going to be worlds better than that. What you could do, and the one downside of this is they both don't have independent USB connections. They're actually connect together through one USB connection. So the joystick you can't just plug that into a USB. You have to plug the joystick into the throttle and then into the computer. But the upside of that is the throttle all by itself will work without the joystick. So you could find the throttle used, or you can get this set up. And if you want to upgrade later, you can keep your throttle and move to probably the best option right now is, at least for the space sims, though they do have other options in the same price range, depending on what you want to fly for. The Gladiator NXT Evo from VKB. There are two versions of it. The premium version is 140 and the standard version is 120. So it's a really good joystick. It's got excellent springs. It's got what's called a pincer gimbal on it. Not gimbal. It's got a pincer gimbal on it, so it responds really well. It's got plenty of options. It is like all ABS plastic. There's no metal parts on this, but that doesn't matter. For the price you're getting, what you're getting for the price is worth it. They also have what you can set up to run 2 of these. Like I was saying, hands-on stick and stick. So that would only be, say, something like 240 to 260 to have a complete, really professional setup. Or they have a throttle all by itself for 200 that's really good too. The Stex throttle, which works really well. Beyond that, the prices get kind of prohibitive. There's other companies like Virpil, which is fun to say. They make really nice ones. They have a really, really, really nice one I want, and it's $600 just for the stick. just the stick. And I'm like, no. Like, there's a big difference between $120 and $600. So yeah, that'd be my recommendations to go with right now. Those are fairly good. Mainly, bottom line, try to get a used X52 because they're not bad for the money. For $80, you get a good setup that you can grow with a little bit, and they're not the best and they are a little finicky, but you could literally do worse. All right, let's see here. Next question. Where is my list of questions? Here we go. This is from Cass. Hey, Nash and Mike and Kitties. Took your recommendation to get a Logitech G502X Lightspeed wireless mouse. That's the one I use right here. It's this G502. But now I have a problem. Whenever I use it on my desktop near my speakers, I can hear the mouse moving. It makes a quiet ripping noise that comes across my speakers, and it's irritating. I don't have this problem with wired headphones or my USB headset. Somehow the mouse is messing with my speakers, and I don't understand how to fix it. Cass, first of all, where is the receiver for the mouse? It's that little USB little bit, that little tiny bit you plug in.
If that's near the speakers, okay, so there's regulations about what devices are allowed to interfere with what other devices. And basically, most, if not all, of your home electronics have a little statement that you can barely read embedded in the plastic on there that says, must not interfere with other electronics, but must accept interference from other electronics. And that's what's going on here. The speaker is picking up signal. Or the computer is basically responding to the mouse, and you're getting signal off your speakers.
The reason I ask is, if you plug in that receiver to the front port on most of your computers, PCs, that also sits next to, no one ever uses these. There's like a headphone port and a mic port on most front of computers. No one ever uses them these days. But that's a wire that goes all the way to your motherboard, right into the motherboard sound chip, all in that area. It's the same area. And I know I actually have my, because I don't have the sound thing connected, but I actually have my receiver for my mouse on the front of my PC because I don't use that USB 2.0 slot for anything else. Because the two are wired so closely together, I feel like if you're doing that, that might explain why there's some bleed over for the sound. It's going to the sound chip on your PC, and then from there it's going to your speakers, and that's why you can hear it. You could try moving it to a different USB port. Say try the back of your computer. If you have it on like a hub on your desk or something, or you put it like in your monitor, I know people have hubs in their monitors on their USB. You say desktop. I was about to say, wait a minute, is this laptop? That might be a bigger problem. But no, you said on my desktop near my speakers. Well, no, I mean, you don't mention if this is a laptop or not.
No, she does say desktop.
Yeah, on my desktop, but okay. I don't know what that means on my. Okay, right. If she meant desk, she would have said desk. You're right. Or it could be Cass mail. Sorry, I don't mean to assume. Because it's just Cass T. We don't get like if it's a Cassidy or a Cassandra. We don't know. Sorry. My bad. Anyway, aside out of that. The first thing I do is I try moving where the USB receiver is located. Future says it might be worth having a USB dongle plugged into a short extension cable and position it further away. Yeah, that's another option is there too.
Because you're not going to have so much latency even you could probably have a 10-foot cable on there and you wouldn't have enough latency for it to interfere with your mouse, to affect your mouse.
Although the receiver range is not super high. So that might be an issue there too.
Well, I looked up the mouse. And it said, because I was wondering if it had any sort of frequency alteration, like you could pick a different frequency band part of Bluetooth. And it didn't that I could see. But it said it had a 2-meter range between the mouse and the receiver.
That's like 6 feet. So that's not great. You do have like some limits, but that's not terrible. That would be the first thing to check and move it. And the reason you're not hearing it on your USB headphones or your wired headphones is because it's the sound is coming out a different way. I'm pretty sure it's going through your motherboard somehow to your. They're connected. They're not connected great, but I feel like it's going near to your sound chip somehow through your motherboard. Moving it to a different USB port might change how it connects. Hopefully that'll do it for you. Another thing you could try is I was about to say try plugging your speakers into a different outlet, but that would only be a ground loop that would help. That wouldn't change this.
There is one other thing, and it is very dependent on what sounds drivers and things you have.
Mm-hmm.
On my previous computer, I had Realtek or something like that. I forget who exactly it was.
Probably Realtek,
sound off the motherboard. And one of the things I could do with the software that I downloaded for the ports there, I could individually disable ports, or I could have individually assign ports. Like the ports were technically labeled,
but you could change them.
Line in, speaker, left, right. But I could say, when I plug something in, it would still ask me, hey, what did you plug in there? And I'd go, well, that was the subwoofer. And it'd go, fantastic, that's the subwoofer. But I could also right-click on it and say, disable.
I'm not sure disabling the ports are going to make a difference.
Well, so one thing I found online with this, hang on, that's why, is if it has the option to it, disabling the line in, it's no longer accepting signal, and then it's not processing that, and it may not go to the speaker.
Right.
And I did find that in a Google search, so your mileage may vary,
Okay. All right, so, let us know what happens. All right, next one is from Terry. Hello, Nash and Mike. Hope you can help. Started having problems with my RTX 3070. It was giving me artifacts and weird noises through the speakers and finally blue screens. It had been working fine up until a few months ago when this started. I ran Furmark a few times and I couldn't complete it. Furmark is a diagnostic benchmark kind of thing for video cards. It really taxes the video card. And if you can't get through a Furmark test, there's a big problem. To complicate things,
something wrong with the computer. It's not necessarily the video card, though.
Yeah. To complicate things, I took the video card to test it in a friend's machine. I have a Ryzen 5 5600X MSI B550 Tomahawk, and they have an i5 10600K with a Prime B460 Plus. I ran the same kind of tests on their machine, played some games, ran Furmark, but nothing happened. Everything worked like it should. Does this mean I have a software problem with my Windows installation? Do I need to reset Windows? Not necessarily.
Okay, so it could well be the power supply is not providing enough juice. It may have been a perfectly good power supply when you got the computer, but if you've upgraded components over time, it may not be providing enough power for everything to run, or it could just be going bad.
Yeah. Because they're just the video card itself is not the only part involved in this. The most likely culprit, like Mike's saying, is the first thing I'd check would be power supply. Because if the power was failing for some reason, and I double check your connectors too, make sure those are firmly plugged in. If the power was failing to the graphics card, that could cause what you're describing, because when the graphics card tries to ramp up and play things more, draw more power than it needs to make the GPU itself go faster to increase the clock speed. When it tries to draw more power, if the power supply goes, nope, then it stops in the middle of its task and it doesn't know what to do. And that's when you get crashes, artifacts. You get that noise because the sound stops midway when it's trying to do something else.
You've frozen them for a second in the middle of that.
Yeah. You get, that's when you get those symptoms. Power supply can cause that. That's the first thing I'd check.
Yeah. One thing I would do is basically, if you've upgraded the machine, if this is not the original video card, you've added drives, you added something else, find an online power supply calculator, put in the parts you have, see what it says you should have. And if your power supply is like on that borderline right there, where you've got a 600 watt power supply and it says you should be using a 650, maybe there's something you forgot to add in there, might be time to upgrade, give yourself a little bit of headroom. If you're well over, then I would be leaning towards either bad connections or a defective power supply at this point.
There are less likely but still possible issues. One of them being the motherboard itself. The motherboard might be having a problem. Some component might have gone bad, and or the CPU, because that controls the PCIe lanes that connect to the CPU. And actually that's how they talk. There are lanes of data that go through, multiples that go to your CPU. And if some of those aren't connecting properly, that can interrupt the process in the middle. It could cause what's going on here. A definitive test to see if it could Windows could potentially do this too. A bad Windows install goof could do this. This could be software. There is a Furmark version for Linux. You could run a live CD or live USB stick, I guess these days.
Yeah.
Get Linux Mint, get a live USB, install that to a USB key. Run Linux, run Furmark for Linux. It's the same test hitting the GPU the same way. Of course, it's GeForce. You'd have to make sure you install the GeForce drivers to make it work properly. And you have to find those from NVIDIA's website, but make sure you install the latest drivers on Linux. Then run the Furmark, and it's also going to run slower because it's running off a USB stick. So be aware of that, but it will run. Run the test. Mint can automate that. The driver config, it could. See if it behaves the same way under Linux as it does under Windows. If it behaves the same way and it gives you issues and it craps out and the system shits itself, you don't have to worry about Windows. It's definitely a hardware issue. If it doesn't do the same thing, if you can just run Furmark and there's no problems, then you might want to consider resetting Windows at that point. I know it's not a fun thing to do, but that would point to a software issue. Something's gone goofy with your software, and it's probably a good time to do a factory reset at that point. But yeah, the first thing you should start with, I think, if hardware wise, after you do the Linux test, the first thing you should start with hardware wise should be the power supply, because that's, of all the culprits of things that could go bad, motherboards going bad is rare. CPUs going bad, it's a little less rare, but it's not typical. But power supplies, those take a pounding from power lines, and the capacitors take a pounding over time, and they have a fan in them, so it's moving parts. The power supply is the most likely culprit, just out of sheer probability. So, all right, this is actually from a different Chris. I didn't give you the name at the end, sorry. Different Chris. This is our last one this week. Hey, Nash, Mike, and other assorted other entities. Just a quick question, two actually. A few weeks ago, you talked about how eBay is a good place to get refurbished laptops, particularly if you go through the seller's sites. Is that still a good option if you're looking for a laptop for heavier things like gaming? My sister wants a laptop to do art since I got her a drawing tablet, but we can all see the dire state of the market. And do you recommend any sellers in particular? If so, well, this is a matter of you not a seller so much as a manufacturer. This would be going through, say, Acer. They have a refurbished store on eBay. I don't know if Asus does. I think HP. Let me look.
HP definitely does. Dell does. I wouldn't recommend a Dell. That's just me.
Yeah, I would not recommend. But yeah, there's Acer, Apple, Samsung. Let's see. The reason why HP's got one, HP, let's see, condition.
Okay, so Acer does have a couple different models of gaming laptop. They do.
Yeah.
They're in the $800 to $1,000 range, so that not cheap, but not outrageous.
Right.
You could also probably mimic a gaming laptop with a high-end business machine. I wouldn't recommend it because those tend to get really pricey.
Victus, that's the brand. Do they have a Victus on HP's? It's a sub-brand. Yes. They're not cheap. They are refurbished. No, those are direct. Those are new. That's the official store. HP Victus, that's their gaming sub-brand. Those aren't bad, the HP. They're not great, but they're not terrible. Acer is probably the one you're going to find the most deals on. And $800 to $1,000 for a gaming laptop right now is not bad. To be perfectly honest. $800 right now for a gaming laptop, that is, I mean, you could do worse. Could do a lot worse. So as individual sellers, that's where your mileage may vary. You got to base that entirely on feedback and, look for refurbished laptops. What you can do to try to narrow down your search for refurbished laptops is search under the laptop category, but you want to include, say, the model name of a graphics, an onboard graphics. For example, put, let's say, RTX 2060 mobile. Search for that. And you'll find laptops, and you narrow that down to refurbished, or 3060 mobile, or 4060 mobile, or 3050 mobile if you want to go a little bit cheaper. Lenovo, Lenovo is another one that could have has some pretty good decent deals on there. See what they have for refurbished. Individual peoples do refurbish laptop. There are companies that salvage them in bulk and refurbish them. Mine is technically it's a Dell Vostro, so it is technically a business laptop, but it also has a built-in, I think it's got like a 1650, or is it GTX 1650? Yeah, something like that. Or no, it's an I think it's pretty sure it's an RTX, like a low RTX 3050. Yeah, it's a low-end RTX. And I picked that up for a song, but that's before the market started getting really bad. But some business, the Vostro, surprisingly, it's a 12th gen Intel with an RTX 3050, and I got it for under $400. And I consider that a huge ass deal that I'm going to hold on to for a while. Not exclusively for gaming, but having the onboard graphics like that does enable it to game. It's not going to be the fastest, but you can probably find a deal like that. In fact, let me just right now off the top of my head, X3050 mobile. Let's see. Well, there's some used ones. Those aren't refurbs. But yeah, I'm seeing like Dell Vostro. Let me see, condition. The reason I say pick refurb is that means people have done some work on them. Oh, and condition is not finding a lot there. There's a 3050 Ti MSI crosshair for 16. All right, well, that's not bad. Renew Tech. Yeah. All right. That's a refurbish. Couple of those like that. You could find those. But yeah, searching for the name of a graphics card and then put mobile after it, you will definitely find gaming laptops. And because yeah, there's MSI Crosshair. It's an i7 11800H with a 3050 Ti for $600. Not terrible. That's, right now that's pretty decent. There's also look for Radeon as well. There's like 5700 mobile, 5600 mobile, and a 6600 mobile. Those will give you some gaming options as well on AMD. Otherwise that's the best I can say is go directly to the reason why it's better to go directly to a company is, the company will have a warranty on it and it's going to be a decent warranty. It might not be a long warranty, but it is a decent one. And it's directly from the people who made the dang thing. So if something goes wrong, they can definitely swap out the parts and keep it going.
Yeah.
So
they may still have the parts.
It's a better way of, it's just a better way of it's kind of like their warehouse, their or their refurbs and all that stuff. It's their own brand. So they know how to service the dang things. It's also, I'm pretty sure they have like B stock and they have scuff and smudge.
And a lot of what they have with the refurb is, it's business computers. It's computers that, there was a 3-year lease on the computer. Oh, the 3 years are up. We got a new computer. We transfer the user's data over, send the old computer back in. They yank the hard drive, or the hard drive gets yanked and destroyed maybe. New hard drive gets put in. They pay someone minimum wage to scrape off all the stickers.
Well, if we're talking gaming refurbs, that's probably returns. That's ones that people didn't want those could be perfectly fine. People just didn't want them for whatever reason, or there was something broken in them and they got it back, they fixed it, and they'll turn around to sell it again. So
I sent a gaming laptop in for a refurb once. I bought the laptop. I used the laptop for about 2 days. It never left a flat surface. And then I look at it and goes, the casing has come apart. I haven't dropped this. I think I'd have noticed if I'd have dropped it. And I took it back to the store and said, hey, this casing has come apart. Can I just swap this out? Do you have the same model? I like the computer. I just want one where the casing's not coming apart. They didn't have the same model. I got a slightly better model.
And then that one you return to them, that goes back to the company, and they can go, oh yeah, we can fix this. We'll put it on refurb and we'll sell it back to somebody else. So that's the best way of getting at it. And then the eBay store, it's a good option. So all right, I think that is everything for this week. Let me double check because Outlook crashed, which sucks. Okay, yeah, that's everything for this week. We'll be back next week, hopefully at the normal time at 9 p.m. Eastern, if none of my plugins screw up again. Until then, for Mike and myself, we'll see you next time. Good night, folks.